This is the Talon Talks podcast from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. I'm Alan Caesar. My guest today is John Phillips, Embry-Riddle's Director of Athletics for our Daytona Beach campus. He graduated in 1990 with a degree in professional aeronautics and finished a master's in aeronautical science immediately afterward in 1992. He also played baseball for the Eagles at the time. He returned to Embry-Riddle in 1997 to be our first Director of Sports Marketing and Promotions and has stayed here working in athletics ever since. JP, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Always love talking about Embry-Riddle, and glad to be here today.
Excellent. You were in the Air Force before you came to Embry-Riddle. How did you find out about the university and decide to go?
You know, it was a long time ago, but I was on active duty at Langley Air Force Base in Hampton, Virginia, which is a beautiful part of the country. And I worked in an F-15 squadron there, and always knew that I wanted to further my education and go on to do something. And quite honestly, prior to landing there at Langley, I was not familiar with Embry-Riddle. I did not really know about it or anything. I grew up in Maryland, and I went to the base education office, and there was a couple of options. And of course, Embry-Riddle had a great ring to it with Aeronautical University as part of it, and so that fit right in with what I was looking for, and started taking classes there. That was what was called at that time the extended campus of Embry-Riddle, and the rest, I guess, is history.
Yeah, the extended campus, for the listeners who don't know, is what turned into worldwide campus. How did you decide on a degree in professional aeronautics?
Quite honestly, that's it was the easiest degree to get. And I know that kind of sounds bad, right? But the professional aeronautics degree, the way it works is you get credit for your military experience. So if you have real life experience, in my case in the Air Force, they evaluate what you've done, the education you've gotten, the hands-on experience you've been through, and they give you a certain amount of credits for your work. And I think I got 42 or 45 credits for my military experience. And so, as a fiscally conscious person at that time, I looked at it and said, well, that's 42 credits I don't have to pay for. And even though the Air Force was paying for part of it through the GI Bill, I thought that's going to get me through faster and cheaper. And I always knew I would go to graduate school. So I kind of felt like what my undergraduate degree was in wasn't as important necessarily. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life at that point. So the Pro Aero degree was a perfect fit for me for those reasons. I got my credits. I started taking classes at night. And then just prior to getting off active duty, when you were on active duty at that time, the military paid for 90% of your tuition. So I'd go into the base education office and write a check for $22 or something to pay for a class, which doesn't happen anymore at Embry-Riddle. But I actually started doing what was at that time our distance learning program, because I wanted to get as many credits as possible before I got off of active duty. And so the last two classes I took, if you can imagine, again, this is 1989. I got a package in the mail that had 6 or 8 cassette tapes in it and a textbook.
Audio cassettes or VHS?
Audio cassettes.
Oh,
so
wow.
You pop in the audio cassette into your boombox, and you got your book, and you listen to some professor drone on and on about, whatever the topic might be, read your book, and then you go to the base education office, and you take a test. And if it's what's today's online education system in a lot of ways, much more simplified, obviously. Go in, take your test, and if you pass it, you get 3 credits and you get a grade. And I went through a couple of classes that way, right there on Langley Air Force Base in the very early version of distance learning.
So you were in an F-15 squadron. What did you do?
I worked in flight operations, and so what that meant is I was kind of the liaison between the pilots and the command center, who was kind of running the everything that was going on. So whether that's weather briefings or we were an alert squadron at Langley Air Force Base. The first TAC fighter wing at that time had 3 squadrons of F-15s, and then we were an active duty alert barn. We had a 5-minute alert hangar if somebody flew without a flight plan or tried to invade the United States from overseas. We were on scramble, and so I was liaison to kind of serve as a communications person between the maintenance folks who were prepping airplanes, the tower, the weather, all sorts of stuff. And if F-15s took off and they went out to go fly in some of our airspace off the coast by Norfolk, for example, and a cloud deck moved in, they need to move somewhere else, then I'm coordinating where they're going to go and how they're going to get there. And then when they fly back, if their plane's broken, I'm letting folks know what needs to be fixed on that particular aircraft or whatever it might be. So it was a really cool job, a lot of multi multitasking, multiple phone lines, multiple radios, multiple sources of communication to all sorts of people, all over base, and quite honestly, all over the world for that matter. But it was a great job, great job.
Excellent. So what did you do between graduating in 92 and then coming back to Embry-Riddle in 97?
Yeah, so after I finished my undergrad in 1990, went straight into graduate school, and quite honestly, one of the reasons I stayed to do that right then at that time was I could keep playing baseball. I really enjoyed playing baseball for Embry-Riddle, and I knew I had the rest of my life to work. I wanted to go to graduate school, but when do you go? Well, if you don't go right away, I'm not going to come back and play baseball at 42.
Right.
So I got to just keep playing at that point. So I kept playing, went through, finished my undergrad, got my master's degree, and then once I graduated.
Wait, so what position did you play?
I was an infielder, mostly second base.
Yeah. Were you any good?
I don't know about that. I'm really lucky I played on the baseball team back in the early days of Embry-Riddle baseball. How about that?
No, there you go.
I hit over 300 my senior year.
Okay.
The only reason I remember that is my college coach, who I still stay in touch with. He reminds me of that every time I see him. Hey, you were a great player. You hit over 300 for me. And I don't know. I stole like 16 or 18 bases that year. I was a starter for 3 consecutive years and in a solid role for the baseball team back then. So.
All right.
But back to your original question, yeah.
Sorry.
So I finished in '92. I got a job for a startup company here in town. My roommate, who was my undergraduate roommate here at Embry-Riddle, he had gone to work for them right when he and I finished our undergrad. I went into grad school. He went to work for them right away. And he said, you should come work for us. It's a growing company, got a lot of good things going on. And so I did, applying nothing that I did at Embry-Riddle for that company. It was a small computer-based company doing computer training. And again, being a startup, I think I was like the 8th employee hired. And evolved into that. And I did mostly sales and marketing. I went on the road and did trade shows for the university for the company, and really enjoyed it. But I was literally living out of a suitcase. Did about 40 trade shows a year for 5 years, and then ultimately got an opportunity to come back here on campus.
So did you ever think about a career in baseball after graduation?
I thought about it a lot, but nobody else wanted to think about it. Maybe behind the scenes in the broadcasting booth or somewhere else. But it's funny, having worked in sports now for going on 22 or 23 years, I guess, in the collegiate space, I never thought about working in sports as a kid. My dad worked for NASA while I was a kid. He retired from NASA after 37 years. I grew up in the space business, so that this whole thing made perfect sense. I played sports my whole life, all the way through high school, and obviously all the way through college. But I never thought of working in sports. That just didn't seem normal. I love what I'm doing now, and if I had known that it was this cool back in high school, maybe I would have done it straight out of high school at that point. But never really thought about it at that point. But it's evolved into what I think is the greatest job in the world. I love supporting Embry-Riddle. I love being around collegiate athletics, and I love the mix that we have of student and athlete here at Embry-Riddle.
You didn't know that at the time when you were coming back, though, did you?
No, absolutely not.
What is it that motivated you to sort of make a little bit of a career change and come back to Embry-Riddle?
Yeah, and so I come back to Embry-Riddle, honestly, and this goes back to I guess one of the reasons that I'm here today is as an alumnus for the university. What do our alumni programs do? So I was playing the role of good Embry-Riddle alumnus at that time in 1997, and I came back on campus for a lunch that Coach Ritter, the basketball coach and athletic director at the time, was speaking at. And he went on and on about Embry-Riddle and all the good things, and he wasn't having to sell me because I knew all the things he was saying. But he's just such a motivating person and motivating speaker. I got fired up about Embry-Riddle, and I was working in marketing, traveling the world, and I thought one day I'd like to not just travel 40 weekends or 40 weeks out of the year and be home. And so I made a comment to Coach Ritter at that alumni event. I said, someday when our athletic program gets big enough that you need someone to market it in the community, I would love to talk to you. 6 months later, I went to work for him as the director of sports marketing and promotions. I didn't go to that lunch thinking I was looking for a job. I didn't go to that lunch thinking I was going to come back to work for Embry-Riddle, but he got me so excited about what was going on here, and I had some experience that I thought, man, I could mesh these two things together and come out with something pretty nice. And it's the rest is history, as they say.
So when you came on to work in athletics, what is it that you sort of came on to do? What was your primary goals?
Yeah, so I was the director of sports marketing and promotions, the first person ever to sit in that job. So it wasn't like I was filling a position that existed. There wasn't a playbook for me to follow. It was kind of make it up as you go along. And of course, I had no experience in that career field. I had marketing experience, but not in sports marketing. So essentially, I like to call it, I was in charge of money in the program and people in the seats. So in a nutshell, that means oftentimes if you go to a sporting event, you'll see, whether it's a baseball game, football game, basketball game, you'll see advertising billboards. Sometimes they're on the outfield fence at a baseball game. Sometimes they're on the scoreboard at a basketball game. They're around the stadium in football, whatever those things are, or whatever sporting event you're in. So I was in charge of money in the program, which was selling sponsorships in the community and also selling tickets in the community, and then people in the seats, whether that's selling tickets to the community or getting our students excited about coming to sporting events. And of course, the students don't generate any revenue per se because they get to go to every sporting event for free as long as they have a valid Eagle card. But that was my job, get money in the program and put butts in the seats to come watch our sporting events.
So the program has grown a lot in the couple of decades since you've been here. Was there like an inflection point in the program when it started to sort of really build on its own momentum?
Yeah, I think there was a couple of them. So athletics here at the Daytona Beach campus started in 1989, which is right around the time I got here. Mm-hmm. So it was very young, very inexperienced at that point. No scholarship money and no facilities. At that point in 1989, we had 5 sports: baseball, basketball, soccer, tennis, and golf, and they were all for men. So 5 sports, all male sports, and all playing off campus. Baseball played down at Jackie Robinson Ballpark. Basketball at that time was bouncing between Mainland High School and Daytona Beach Community College, as it was called at that point in time. And tennis was over at Pelican Bay. Soccer was all over the place wherever they could find a vacant field. And of course, golf has never been on campus and probably never will be, playing at local golf courses. But the program evolved, and then a couple years later, of course, the basketball team moved into Silver Sands Middle School. So we got to have our own arena that we could practice in and play rather than bouncing between the high school and the junior college. But then the breakthrough was probably during the first breakthrough, I'll say, was probably during the President Sliwa's administration when we opened the ICI Center. That was 1995, the first major facility on the Daytona Beach campus dedicated to intramurals, rec sports, and of course varsity sports as well. We played our first games that year. We added women's volleyball that same year, so added an arena and added a first women's athletic program in 1995, and volleyball and men's basketball played in the ICI Center. And I think that was kind of the breakthrough, that students had a facility on campus where they could go and support the Eagles. And I think that was probably the first breakthrough for us.
So it can be kind of risky to switch competing in a different division, like we did from going from NAIA to NCAA Division II. What kind of factors went into making that decision? Yeah,
it's a great question. So fast forward, that was breakthrough number 1 in 1995, and then the biggest breakthrough number 2 would have been in 2014 when we made a decision on the Daytona Beach campus to move from NAIA into the NCAA, into Division II. And I think as our program evolved over the years, and not just wins and losses and not just how many teams we had, but the overall success. You know, we've built a soccer stadium, baseball stadium, softball stadium, tennis courts, track and field complex, now lacrosse. We have a true, vibrant intercollegiate athletic program, and our infrastructure grew to accommodate that. And at a certain point, we almost outgrew the NAIA. And that's nothing against the NAIA at all, but it's generally smaller schools. And we were one of those smaller schools when we first started athletics. Not a lot of great support, not a lot of facilities. But we evolved into where we have now 20 sports. 9 for men, 10 for women, and then co-ed cheerleading makes up our 20-sport program. So as we evolved and we were just looking for higher levels of competition, better branding, and also we want to compete on the field and court against the schools that we compete against in recruiting overall. And again, that's nothing against the NAIA schools that were in our previous conference in the Sun Conference, but we don't really academically recruit against schools like Ave Maria University, Weber International, Warner, St. Thomas, Florida Memorial. Those are not the comparable schools to Embry-Riddle overall. Our new conference in NCAA Division II as part of the Sunshine State Conference, Rollins College, Florida Tech, Florida Southern College, University of Tampa, much, I won't say bigger because that everybody always thinks of enrollment as bigger, but maybe better known, more substantial universities with a better organization and better infrastructure as well to provide a good experience for our student athletes and also the fans and boosters that go and support our teams as well. So it's been a good move for us and the right move.
Well, so our student athletes consistently have a higher GPA, average GPA than the general student body. Mm-hmm. How do you pull that off? Is that a thing that sort of happens on its own, or is it there like a support system among coaches and staff?
Yeah, there definitely doesn't happen on its own. So we have a motto that started under Coach Ritter's leadership, and it's going to continue as long as I'm here, and hopefully forever, of the student, person, player. And that's in that order by design. The student comes first. You got to be a great student who has an interest in one of Embry-Riddle's academic programs. You can't just come here and want to become an elementary education major and teach kindergarten. We don't offer that degree here. We're not going to try to fake it and put you in a degree that doesn't make sense for you just because you want to play your sport. Find a degree that you want, that you are qualified to be in, and then be a great student, just like every other student on campus, and hopefully even be better than the average student body. Then the person part, that goes to our branding. We want, when you walk across campus wearing an Embry-Riddle basketball shirt or Embry-Riddle baseball, or go out in the community and represent Embry-Riddle with a sweatshirt or whatever it might be, we want you to carry yourself at a high level with great character and great integrity so that people say, wow, that guy or girl, whether they're on a sports team or not on a sports team, that walked through here with an Embry-Riddle shirt on was really impressive. He was nice and polite and carried himself well or herself well, and that will go back to support our university. The 130 some odd thousand alumni that have come before us have built a great brand and great reputation for Embry-Riddle, and it's our job to continue it moving forward. So that's the person part. And then the player, we make no shame about it. We like to win. We have no shame in trying to win championships, but never at the expense of the first two, the student and the person. And then going back to the student, we do provide services for our student athletes. They do miss class sometimes for sporting events. If there's a game in Miami, for example, if we're playing Barry University at 7:30 on Wednesday night, which is when men's basketball plays, they might have to leave class at noon that day to drive down to Miami to play the game that night. They are still responsible for all the work. They got to make it up ahead of time or on the back end. And so we provide opportunities for them with tutoring services above and beyond what the Academic Advancement Center provides. There are additional tutoring services that are provided to help make up for that work. But the bottom line, it all starts with the coaches. Recruit the right student who is capable of being here on their own free will and wants to be here, and you're going to be successful. And we stay on top of them as well. The student athletes know if you're not academically qualified, you can't keep playing your sport. And so they have an incentive to get good grades, and we've proven it for 19 years in a row. 19 years in a row, student athletes have had a higher grade point average than the regular student body. And proud to say this past fall, student athletes had a 3.22 overall grade point average. And we have 430 student athletes. So that's a good number. The campus average it varies, but not by much because there's almost 7,000 students. Mm-hmm. It's about usually around 2.9, 2.91. So we're going to be significantly above the campus average from this past fall.
Yeah. So we have athletes from all over the world competing on our teams. What's it like recruiting at an international level?
It's a challenge, no doubt. But honestly, the international students do incredibly well here academically, incredibly well. Really proud to, I hate to single out one sport, but I know this one off the top of my head, so I will. Samantha Bohan, our women's soccer coach, 14 of our 22 women's soccer players this past fall got a 4.0 GPA. 14 of 22 got a perfect, straight A's in every class. And they made it to the NCAA Sweet 16.
Wow.
They went to the national tournament and won their first game. They won their second game and then lost on a heartbreaker in the third round of the NCAA tournament. But they had phenomenal grades. And of those 14 with perfect 4.0s, I think 12 of them are international students. So they're great students. But it's challenging to recruit from overseas because you can't travel all that often. Mm-hmm. Sam actually just got back from a wonderful trip to Iceland and Sweden where she was doing some recruiting. But you can't go visit all of them all the time because you can't possibly afford to go to every country around the world to visit and recruit. So we do a lot of recruiting through Skype.
Okay.
It's funny. Sometimes I'll walk down the hall and I'll see Samantha with her laptop having a conversation with somebody while she's walking around, and she's basically doing a campus tour with her laptop, using the camera on her MacBook to give the campus tour to this student athlete who's in another part of the country. And she'll be over here on this side of campus. We're in the Maury Hosseini Student Union right now recording this, and she'll be over here showcasing this beautiful facility. She'll be out at the soccer field showcasing it, and our other coaches do the same thing. Sometimes it's FaceTime with your iPhone. Other times you can do it with your laptop. But whatever your resource is, you just make do with what you got. This is I won't say it's an easy place to sell, but today's a pretty good day. 70 degrees, sunshine, beautiful Daytona Beach, Florida. There's a lot of incentive for people from other parts of the world to want to come here. And, of course, the great Embry-Riddle degree that folks are going to get certainly plays a big, big part in that as well.
Right. You've been the announcer for Eagles basketball for about 2 decades now. Tell me how you started doing that.
It's a funny story. Coach Ritter, I talked about earlier, he's a pretty good motivator. So he came to me after he hired me to be this director of sports marketing. As we're getting ready for basketball season, he said, "Hey, I want to talk to you about something. I'd like you to be the the color commentator for our radio broadcasts." And I was like, "Coach, I played baseball here, not basketball. I don't know that much about basketball." He goes, "Oh, you'll work with Bob." Bob Bells was our announcer at the time, professional, DJ. He was on the local radio station, New Sports, New Radio. He goes, "You'll work with Bob, pat you on the back. You'll be fine." So you can't say no to Coach Ritter. So I sign up. I become the color commentary voice for the Eagles for that season, which was 1997 through 98, and then the following year, 1998 through 1999. At the end of the 99 season, Bob Bells decides he's going to retire, move back to Atlanta, be closer to his grandkids. So I'm like, "Coach, what are we going to do about the play-by-play announcer, with Bob's retirement?" He says, "You've been sitting next to Bob for 2 years. You'll be fine." So same speech, "You'll be fine." So I dig in. I start listening to some folks on radio, and I had grown up listening to radio quite a bit in sports, and I never knew it, but I love listening to sports on the radio as a kid, and so to have that chance, I did my homework and tried to model myself after a couple of people that I enjoyed listening to, and took over the play-by-play duties that year, and pretty much have done it ever since. I haven't missed too many games, quite honestly, since 1999, home or away, for a number of years. This year we're only doing the home games. We're not doing the road games any longer because of the Sunshine State Conference digital network where you can watch games online. But virtually every men's basketball game since 1997, I have been at the microphone calling the play-by-play or the color commentary, or more often than not doing both. Because most of the time I work alone, so I'm the play-by-play and the color guy during most of those games. But it's been an absolute blast for me, and it's spun off into other broadcasting opportunities for me.
Yeah, so you've done announcing for the Daytona Beach minor league baseball team, and race coverage for the WNDB, the Rolex 24-hour, the Daytona 500. Mm-hmm. So did it? It seems like you covered a little bit about how you got good at that, as sort of by listening and practicing. Did it come naturally to you?
Yeah, I feel like it did. I'm a typical collegiate athlete, or former collegiate athlete, as the case may be. I grew up watching sports. I love sports. I keep up with them. Some I keep up with more than others. But WNDB, after broadcasting the Embry-Riddle games on their station for a number of years, they came to me and offered me a position to do high school football play-by-play for both Mainland and Seabreeze High School. Whoever was playing out at the big stadium there on LPGA Boulevard, Municipal Stadium, at the time, now it's called Daytona Stadium because they've had a corporate change. But they hired me to do football broadcast coverage, and I was the play-by-play guy for a number of years, and enjoyed doing that, having played football all the way through high school. And then, probably 8 or 9 years ago, I can't remember exactly how long, they came to me and said, "Hey, we'd like to add you to our NASCAR team to do the pre-race show for the Daytona 500. Actually, it was for the Coke Zero when it started. It was in the summer. They called me in June. I remember vividly where I was. I was in Rochester, New York at a seminar, and they said, "Hey, we'd like you to help us out with the Coke Zero 400, which, of course, traditionally has been July 4th weekend at Daytona International Speedway. I'd like to add you to our broadcast team." And I kind of felt like it was deja vu all over again with Coach Ritter. I was like, I watch NASCAR, but I'm not that much of a fan. I don't follow it that closely. And they're like, yeah, that's why we're calling you in June. The race is in July. You've got time. You'll be fine. There goes that line again. You'll be fine. And so they dig in, start doing my homework, find out, who's the sponsor of Dale Jr.'s team and who's the sponsor of Tony Stewart's team, and, so on and so forth through the drivers, so that when I'm interviewing drivers or interviewing crew chiefs or owners or whoever it might be, I kind of know what I'm talking about a little bit, and it's evolved. So they kind of gave me the tryout with the Coke 0400 race in the summer, and then that next spring added me to the Daytona 500 team, and then a year later added to the Rolex 24 team, which is a whole nother level of knowledge, because there's multiple different types of cars, drivers from all over the world, and literally a 24-hour marathon of a race that is a whole nother story in itself. But it's evolved into something I enjoy doing, and hopefully the product that I've put out over the years has been acceptable to WNDB. I think so, because they keep asking me back.
They keep calling you. Yeah, that's a good indicator.
It's February in Daytona Beach, and the Daytona 500 is about 2 weeks away, and I'm gearing up for a couple of days out at the racetrack. So I'll be back again this year. So.
Rock and roll. Yeah. So you're known a bit for having a sort of never having, there's never a bad day kind of mentality.
Agreed.
What's your secret formula?
I don't know what it is. Maybe it's a lot of Mountain Dew or something. But you know what? I really think the most important thing is it starts with where I work and what I do. I love Embry-Riddle. I love being here. I wouldn't be here 30 years later if I didn't. When you come to a place like this that is, given me so much as education and as a career, I just feel like I need to be here every day to give back. I love Embry-Riddle. I've brought my wife here. She now works in Homeland Security. She's a department chair over there and a professor. She spent 22 years in the Attorney General's office. Prior to that, she was brought on board as an adjunct faculty member teaching business law and law and policy and things like that, and it's evolved into a full-time job for her. We have 18-year-old twins that are both freshmen here at Embry-Riddle. They live in the dorm right over there in Newhall too. And then I have a 16-year-old daughter that maybe she's the only one that doesn't come to Embry-Riddle every day right now. The rest of the family's here, so maybe she'll be next. But this place has just become home to me. And I quite honestly, like we were joking earlier and as we were preparing, I needed 30 credits when I came here, and I thought I would do 15 in the fall, 15 in the spring, graduate, and go back to the Washington, D.C. area where I grew up, and my dad worked for NASA. I really thought that was what life was going to be, work in the Washington, D.C. area again. And, of course, here we are 30 years later, and I'm still in Daytona, and I've never left. It's an awesome place, a wonderful university. I've gotten to work for Dr. Sliwa, Dr. Ebbs, Dr. Johnson, now Dr. Butler, everybody other than Jack Hunt, the original president. I've been here part of their tenure. I've watched this university evolve over the years, both physically in the structure. Mm-hmm. Most of the places where I went to class, those buildings don't exist anymore. The old alphabet soup is all gone. But I've watched it evolve into a beautiful place and a wonderful place. And while the names and the people might change, it's still a place I have great passion about and love coming to work every day.
Yeah. What are your 3 very best days or experiences you've had in your career here?
Oh, wow, that's a good one.
You can thank Coach Ritter for that one.
Yeah. So I got to start with the national championship that we won in March of 2000 in men's basketball. So we were in Branson, Missouri when we won the national championship. If you think about it, winning a national championship in any sport at any level is an incredible accomplishment. We did that in March of 2000. 10 years prior to that, we had just started basketball on our campus in 1990 with no scholarships and no gym. So from 10 years of no uniforms hardly back then to winning a national championship was a wonderful memory for me, and not just for our athletic program, but I think it really brought our entire institution together. And I think at that point a lot of people realized, wow, athletics can work at Embry-Riddle, and it really has worked quite well over the years. So that's definitely got to be one. The other one, more recent, was the day that I got to stand up in the Henderson Welcome Center and announce that we had been officially accepted into NCAA Division II. That took an incredible amount of work by dozens and dozens of people. I think that was on a Monday. The Friday prior was when the NCAA made their phone call. So they sent out a notice to us, hey, we're going to be calling you with our decision. And not everybody gets in. This is not a guarantee. There were several schools that applied that either got denied entirely or got held back go through the provisional membership one more year if you're not ready. So we knew our call was coming at, I don't know if it was like 2 o'clock or something on Friday afternoon. I'm in Dr. Butler's office waiting for the NCAA phone to ring, and the red phone rings, and Dr. Butler answers, and they were happy to tell us that we had made it in. And that following Monday, we had the press conference and invited the entire university to let them know that this NCAA move is not just athletics. It impacts alumni. It impacts the compliance office, the registrar's office, financial aid office. Everybody on our campus was involved in it, and that was a big day for us. That's definitely the top two there. Ooh, what's going to be third place? Maybe something more recently and more personal. When my kids, I have boy-girl twins. When they both decided to come to Embry-Riddle, because there's I won't say there's pressure, but to go to the school where mom and dad work, that's kind of an easy decision. But they could have done whatever they wanted, and we would have supported them one way or the other. But they both decided to come here, and we're only one semester in, but they both did awesome in the fall. Both of them got Dean's List academic recognition, and they're both incredibly happy at Embry-Riddle, and I'm really happy for them and happy for our family to have everybody here together on a daily basis. That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
So how can alumni and fans stay connected with Embry-Riddle Athletics?
Well, I think one of the easiest ways is aeronautics.com. That's the athletic department website here for the Daytona Beach campus, aeronautics.com. You can follow along, and you can read the write-ups and the recaps of the games. You can see the schedule. Maybe we're coming to your area. If you live in Tampa or Lakeland or down in Melbourne, a lot of alumni there in the Space Coast. We go to Florida Tech periodically. But then the other thing you can do is you can watch games online. Again, that same website, aeronautics.com. In this case, just hit /live, L-I-V-E, and that'll take you to a listing of every game that's going on right now, whether it's home or away, and you can tune in and watch. And it's not pay-per-view, but it's similar to like the ESPN3 model. ESPN3 is not the over-the-airwaves ESPN. It's the online version of ESPN. And so you can watch our baseball games, our basketball games, soccer, volleyball, lacrosse, softball, right there online, and full HD quality. If you have Hulu or any of those OTT type services, most of them connect in. We have a Fire Stick at home. It works perfectly fine. I can watch the Embry-Riddle basketball games on my big screen TV in the living room and feel like I'm right there. And again, whether that's home or away, because if it's home, I'm going to be at the game, and you're going to listen to my voice calling the game for the men's basketball games, and occasionally women's basketball or baseball or whatever else. But when you're on the road, you'll listen to an announcer from the other team that's calling the game. But that's a great way to keep up with it. You literally, and we get a lot of alumni, especially out on the West Coast. Some of them are still at work. If you're working at Boeing in Seattle, and the basketball game starts at 7 o'clock here in Daytona Beach. Well, it's only 4 o'clock Seattle time. Those guys are tuning in and watching the game from the comfort of their desk or on their cell phone or wherever they might be. And keep up with the Eagles, aeronautics.com/live if you want to watch the games.
All right.
The other thing you can do, I got to get this in there.
Yeah.
You can follow me on Twitter.
I definitely follow you on Twitter.
Because I'm pretty much going to almost only tweet about Embry-Riddle. I'm not going to let you know what I had for lunch or where I went out over the weekend. I'm not telling you that because you probably don't care. But if you want to know about Embry-Riddle, and it's not just about Embry-Riddle athletics, about Embry-Riddle, the entire university, you can follow me on Twitter at JP_Daytona. JP_Daytona. And I will keep you up to date with what's going on here on campus. My very, very best to do so.
So we'll continue the lightning round in a moment, but first I'd like to tell our listeners that coming up on April 17th is one of the premier fundraising events here in Volusia County, the Blue and Gold Gala. So JP, tell me a little bit about that. Why should I be going?
Yeah, well, you should be going as an Embry-Riddle person. You should be going to support the Eagles. So this has evolved. Started in, 2004, I guess it was. This is the 16th annual event. It started back at that time when we built our tennis courts. The Crotty Tennis Complex, the university wanted to build tennis courts for our intercollegiate tennis team, and the university said, we can't just give you all the money to build this. You're going to have to bring something to the table from athletics. So how are we going to bring something to the table? And then literally that meant bring some money to the table. So we decided we're going to have a fundraising event. It just so happened to be we decided to do a dinner silent auction. And these are not new events. They happen all over the country, all over the world. Virtually every weekend somewhere there's a dinner silent auction going on. So we started the Blue and Gold Gala at that time to pay off our our debt to build the tennis courts, essentially. We had about 200 people attend that first one. It was mostly community folks who love Embry-Riddle and support the Eagles. And a few alumni certainly were attending that one as well, and always have. And it's evolved. Now in its 16th year, we take up the entire ICI Center, have over 600 attendees, and all the money raised goes to support student athletes and student athlete programs, whether that be a new piece of equipment we might need for the sports medicine area to do rehab for an injured shoulder, or a new video camera so we can stream our games in full HD. Sometimes as we add new sports and new facilities, we need to add additional cameras. And so it's enhancements to our program, and also a portion of the money always goes towards scholarships as well. We feel very strongly that a portion of everything we raise needs to go towards scholarships to help out our students and our student athletes, to help pay for their for their tuition, for their scholarships. So it's an excellent event. It's the table sponsorships start at $1,500 and range up to $5,000, or you can buy an individual ticket for $125. It's a wonderful event in terms of food. There's beer, there's wine, fantastic desserts that are in it, and then also you can bid on some really cool things, whether it be silent auction type things like a round of golf somewhere. Or if you're a NASCAR fan, how about this one? We had the quarter panel off of Tony Stewart's car back when Tony's retired now. He just got inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame this past weekend. When he drove for Joe Gibbs in the Home Depot car, the number 20 car, we had the quarter panel off of his Home Depot Chevrolet that we auctioned off last year, autographed by Tony Stewart. We've had all sorts of things. Vince Carter gave us a pair of his shoes from basketball, from the NBA star Vince Carter, who of course grew up here in Daytona, autographed Vince Carter tennis shoes. Andre Agassi gave us a pair of shoes years and years ago that he wore in the U.S. Open. All sorts of things in the silent auction. In the live auction, there's some really cool trips and experiences that we just gave away last year. 7 days in Costa Rica at a house down there that someone a local person here donated their home to us. So basically got all expenses paid in terms of once you get to Costa Rica, a place to stay. We've had ski homes in Colorado. We've had houses in the Bahamas. We had Patty Wagstaff, the famous aerobatic pilot who works out of St. Augustine and does some training up there in upset recovery. Got a ride with her in one of her planes up there in St. Augustine. We auctioned that off last year. Some really cool things, but some memorable opportunities that are available in that night, and it's just a really fun event. It starts at 6, goes to about 9:30, and annually raises anywhere between $150,000 and maybe $200,000 a year for the university. So it's a wonderful way to give back as an alumnus or a community member to come and support Embry-Riddle on Friday, April 17th.
Yeah, and clearly has a lot of very direct benefits to the student athletes. So listeners can visit erauathletics.com/gala to reserve their seats today. Now, are you ready for the lightning round?
I am.
All right. I'm going to give you 5 questions, and you're going to give me 5 answers. So we're going to start off with this. You have Air Force experience, so we'll do the airplane one. You can fly any plane ever made from anywhere to anywhere. What do you choose?
Well, I'm going to definitely have to choose the F-15. I got to fly in it one time. I was selected as the Airman of the Year for our squadron when I was on active duty, and one of the perks of that was a ride, an incentive ride in the F-15. So Captain Mike Tully and I got to go out and slip the surly bonds of Earth for about an hour and 8 minutes, something like that, and it was really cool to do it once. I'd like to do it again. And where am I going to fly in my F-15? Got to do it out west somewhere, I think. Maybe. I spent some time at Nellis Air Force Base deployed when I was on active duty. We flew in a lot of exercises out there. So maybe we'll take off from Nellis and go up and explore up toward Area 51, Tonopah, that area. We're not going to get too close, get in any trouble. And then maybe go down toward the Grand Canyon, which is just beautiful scenery. And then I'm not sure if the runway at Prescott is long enough for the F-15 to land at. But if we could, we'll go to Prescott and land there. If not, maybe we'll have to go to somewhere close by, whether that's down in Phoenix or up in Flagstaff, or maybe a bigger runway. I just don't know enough about the Prescott runway to see if the F-15 can get there. But I'd like to do it out west in the world's greatest air superiority aircraft, the McDonnell Douglas F-15 Eagle. Is that a commercial for the F-15 a little bit?
Yeah, there you go.
And a little jab at the single-engine lawn darts in the F-16 world. Hope I don't mess up that with some of the alumni that fly that plane. There's a good friendly rivalry there.
Yeah. It's all friendly.
I still love the F-16 and the Air Force Thunderbirds, though. I'm still a big fan.
Excellent. All right. So if you could read only one book for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh, man, that's a tough one there. I've been doing a lot of John Gordon reading recently. Not sure if you're familiar with John Gordon, but he does a lot of sports-themed leadership books, one of which was really, really good. You win in the locker room first. And that translates into the business world, not literally in the sports world. He uses sports analogies in his writing, but you win in the locker room first in that you win as a team in your preparation. And when you show up on game day, maybe game day for you is going to work, going to teach a class, going to be an airline pilot, whatever your job might be. You win in the locker room first. You win in your preparation. You win in your teamwork. You win behind the scenes before you show up on game day. You win in the locker room first by John Gordon.
All right. Who's your favorite cartoon character?
Oh, man. I'm pretty traditional with Mickey Mouse, I think, as living here in Florida. My kids have spent many hours and thousands of my dollars at the happiest place on earth. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with Mickey Mouse. But second place, this is my wife's answer. She's a huge Winnie the Pooh fan. But I can't choose to be Winnie the Pooh. That's my favorite. That's hers though.
Okay,
I'll stick with Mick.
All right. So picture your ideal grilled cheese sandwich. Ooh. You're about to take a bite, right?
Yeah.
What's it made of? What's in it?
Man, that's a really good one because I do like to eat. Well, it's got to be just a lot of cheese. Like double slices of cheese. I'm a traditional American yellow, straight out of the box American cheese, but I think I got to put some bacon on there.
Oh yeah.
Regular old white bread. I've had it on all sorts of other breads. Rye bread's fine. All the other breads are good, but I don't want to get in the way of the cheese flavor, so I can keep it just straight regular white bread with bacon, because bacon goes with everything.
Yeah.
And bacon makes everything better.
I totally get behind you on the white bread there.
Yeah.
It's the other breads are fine.
Yeah,
but,
they're great.
You don't want to distract from the cheese.
No distractions from my cheese. And if I had a little bit of tomato soup to dip it in, there ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. All right. If you could live for a week as any person in history, who would it be?
Oh, man. I'm going to have to go Cal Ripken.
Yeah.
Junior. As a baseball player, baseball fan, someone who grew up in the state of Maryland, the iconic baseball player for all Baltimore Orioles fans was Cal Ripken Jr. Not just because he was a phenomenal baseball player, but the guy had the work ethic. 2,000 plus, I don't remember the number off the top of my head, games in a row. I know that Lou Gehrig had 2130. Cal broke it with 2131. I think he finished with 2,200 and something, whatever the number was. But the bottom line is he played over 2,000 games in a row. And whether you're playing baseball, football, or showing up to just go to work, he showed up for work 2,000 days in a row. Didn't take a day off. Hardly took an inning off. Most of those games he started and played every inning. He was just a legendary human being for his style of play. He was a great player. He was an all-star. He was an MVP. He's a world champion. But he just came to work every day, worked hard, did his job, took care of his teammates, but showed up every day at the workplace.
All right. Well, thanks, JP, very much for joining us for the Talon Talks podcast.
That was awesome. I enjoyed my time here. I hope I didn't talk too long or too much.
I think we're doing all right. We like to keep it to a loose 30, so this is a very loose 30.
Fair enough. Hopefully the people enjoyed listening to it. And again, if you want to keep up with the Eagles, we would love for you to do so. ERAUathletics.com.
All right. The Talon Talks podcast is a production of Wicked Radio and the Embry-Riddle Office of Alumni Engagement. We're coming at you from the Maury Hosseini Student Union at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in sunny Daytona Beach, Florida. If you'd like to share your thoughts about our show or suggest a guest to us, we'd love to hear from you. Visit alumni.eru.edu/podcast and click the feedback link. Thanks for downloading us. We'll see you next time.